A visit to Rome is always a treat. Our hotel was about a block away from the American Embassy and the American Consulate. We started at the top of the Spanish Steps, in the shadow of the French monastery church Trinita de Monte. The Salustiano obelisk in front is one of several we will encounter along the way. We start down what will become 135 steps, connecting 3 terraces to reach the Piazza de España, or in English, the Square of Spain. This is where the Spanish Embassy to the Vatican has been located since the 17th century. This view of the Spanish Steps is the most photographed in Rome. Here's another, the Trevi Fountain. You may have seen it in films like Roman Holiday, 3 Coins in the Fountain, La Dolce Vita, and others. The tradition here is that if you toss a coin with your right hand over your left shoulder, you will return to Rome. About 3,000 euros are thrown into the fountain each day, totaling more than $1 million in a year. The daily collection is used to fund a food pantry for Rome's needy. Our next stop is the famous Pantheon. There's nothing like using ancient Rome's best-preserved building for wedding photography. After all, this 2,000-year-old landmark is now a Christian church, having served as a temple dedicated to all the Roman gods until it was repurposed in 608 AD. Architecturally, it was a trailblazer. The massive dome, fronted by a temple portico with its Corinthian columns, inspired many buildings of the 19th and 20th centuries. You've seen them: government buildings, libraries, university buildings, city halls, even the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. What you don't normally see is a big hole in the ceiling, open to the elements. The practical purpose of this oculus, as it's called, is to admit light and reduce the weight of the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. Because the polished marble floor slopes down about 12 inches from the middle, rainwater flows to drains around the perimeter. Also lining the perimeter are several chapels, tombs, and beautifully displayed statues. Here are some that caught our eye. If you're wondering how tall the dome is, its height matches the 142-foot diameter of the floor. The Romans were savvy engineers. Rome's Piazza Navona is famous for its picturesque beauty and its fountains. This is the Fountain of Four Rivers by Giovanni Lorenzo Bernini. It was built for Pope Innocent X, who was Bernini's patron. The sculptures represent the 4 great rivers of the known continents at the time: the Nile, the Ganges, the Danube, and the Rio de la Plata. Behind the fountain looms the Baroque church of Sant'Anese Negone, a work of art in its own right. And of course, we can't ignore the ever-present obelisk, which dates from the 1st century AD. Also in Piazza Navona, we find the Fountain of Neptune. It's the work of Flemish sculptor John Bologna, arguably the last significant sculptor of the Italian Renaissance. This pigeon has very definite ideas about the purpose of 16th century art. As we walk along the street, admiring the magnificent churches of Rome, we look up to see a most impressive structure that has become the national symbol of Italy. This monument to the Italian unification is also called Vittoriano, honoring Victor Emmanuel II, whose efforts brought about a unified republic with Rome as the center. It is here, at the altar of the fatherland, that the President of the Italian Republic comes each year to commemorate Liberation Day, Republic Day, and Armed Forces Day. This marble-clad monument was built between 1885 and 1935, with its focal point a bronze statue of King Victor Emmanuel II, astride his horse. The design has been called a neoclassical interpretation of the ancient Roman Forum, complete with Corinthian columns forming a long colonnade to create a majestic portico. Two statues of the goddess Victoria driving a horse-drawn chariot appear on top. And at each end we also find a statue of the Winged Victory. External staircases provide 243 steps to reach the portico at the top, and certainly the view of the city is worth it. But I confess, we took full advantage of an available elevator to access the top terrace. Now we bid farewell to the Winged Victory before heading back down to earth. We paid a visit to Rome's Church of St. Peter in Chains. In Italian, that's San Pietro in Vincoli, although our interest extended well beyond seeing the actual chains believed to have been used to bind the Apostle Peter when he was arrested on 2 occasions for preaching about Jesus. We had interest, certainly, in viewing the elaborate tomb of Pope Julius II, which his family had commissioned the famed sculptor Michelangelo to create in the year 1505. Unfortunately, the Pope didn't live to see it. However, our primary interest was in seeing Michelangelo's statue of Moses, one of his most acclaimed masterpieces. The Pope might have been surprised at Michelangelo's interpretation of Moses as sprouting horns. Scholars don't believe it was suggestive of the devil, but rather a symbol of strength, projecting radiance of the Lord as Moses clutches the commandments of God in his right arm. Although the Church of St. Peter in Chains is Roman Catholic, this statue of Moses attracts Jewish and even Islamic visitors to honor one of the shared patriarchs of their faiths. We wind up our short tour of Rome with a fleeting view of the Tiber River and a classic bridge, a remnant of a 3rd century wall that used to extend 12 miles around the city. A brief glimpse of the Basilica of St. Mary Major, the largest Catholic church devoted to Mary in Rome, and the Palace of Justice, which houses Italy's highest court of appeals, the Supreme Court of Cassation. This cylindrical fortress is Castel San Angelo, built as Emperor Hadrian's mausoleum in 139 AD. Today it's a museum, but in the 14th century it was used to protect popes in danger and even served as a prison.